Um, so let's recap what we went through a little bit last week with chapter 13 and also a little bit of chapter 12. So we recalled, if we recall, in chapter 12 that Satan was cast out of heaven. And with this, he wages war against the woman, which is Israel, and also against the saints or the remaining tribulation believers in Christ. So, and then we moved to chapter 13, which introduces the two beasts. So we went, the first beast last week who rose up out of the sea was the Antichrist. And so the Antichrist and the false prophet, which we'll read about tonight. And so they're described in chapter 13 in more detail. The Antichrist has been with us since pretty much the first seal was opened. He was the rider on the white horse, so way back in the beginning there. So the Antichrist has already been in power to this point, but now as we get to the 3.5 year point of his reign, so to say, he's possessed by Satan himself, the dragon, and he's given total power to rule satanically. And so up to this point, he has appeared to the world as a savior, to the Jews as a Messiah. So he's the guy who has all the answers, a Mr. Fix-It. All these problems, he's suddenly going to have the answers for, and people are going to follow him. And he will deceive many. So he's brokered or signed a 7-year peace agreement with Israel, which and the world for that matter. So between Israel and the world, they're going to have a peace deal that will be for 7 years, but will only last for 3.5. So he signs this deal with the world and Israel, which will be broken at the midpoint, and we read about that in Daniel 9:27 and also in Matthew 24. Daniel 9:27 says, "And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, which is a week of years. So 7 days equals 7 years. In the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering." So we know that there will be a rebuilt temple at this point, because the Jews will be sacrificing again on the Temple Mount. How that comes about, we don't know yet, but and then on the wing of abominations, he shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation, which is determined, is poured out on the desolate. Matthew 24:15, Jesus himself says, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand." Verse 16, "Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." So God has a place prepared for the Jews. We believe it's Petra. I don't know if you people have seen or been to Petra or seen pictures of Petra, but it's a rock or a little city built into the rocks, into the mountains. Let's see if I can do this really quick. I might have a picture.
Ask about that, Petra. About
I'm going to change my background really quick because I have a picture of Petra. So he protects, we believe he's going to protect, the Lord's going to protect the Jews in Petra. Here's a picture in my background here. I'll get out of the way. But it's an actual, in Jordan, it's a actual city, or all these buildings are built into the rocks where people can live. The entrance to get in, if you can see this, I'll get out of the way. Nobody can get in or out except by this one entrance. And it looks like it was created through a flood or this area. So it was heavy water at some point, probably the flood Um, and so the Jews will be protected in that area. Let me get back to my room here. So that's Matthew 24:15. And so we saw that he rises up as the Antichrist, or the beast, rises up out of the nations of people, or he says out of the sea. So the sea represents the nations. And so this guy is going to rise from obscurity, from out of nowhere, and he'll suddenly be promoted. And it's similar. So an example of this might be like President Obama. So we remember he rose from obscurity. He was a community organizer, and then he suddenly became a senator for several months, and then ran for president. So in just a few months, he became president, and he kind of rose from obscurity. So in the same manner, uh, this beast or this antichrist, he's going to come out of nowhere and become a world leader, and he's going to have great power and authority. And so we saw in the first seal that was open, he was the rider on the white horse, who had a bow, but he didn't use arrows. So he's going to use fear, and he's going to use his influence to rule. He will be a judgment also on the whole planet. So part of God's plan is going to be to use a satanic ruler as a judgment against the very people who worship the beast. And so then we move on, and we're going to find out tonight more about the second beast who comes out of the land, and this is the false prophet. And as we're about to see, he will be used to deceive the world into joining a new universal religion, or a combination of a religion and government, through deception of miracles and signs. And he will institute a cashless, or a money system that I assume is going to be cashless, because that's the direction that we're going now. And so this money system, no one will be able to buy, sell, or trade without the mark of the beast, or the sign of their allegiance. People will pledge allegiance to this person. He'll be like a rock star, or somebody that these people are actually going to worship. And so they'll wear his mark like we wear our favorite football team's T-shirt, in that sense. So he'll have that kind of charisma. And so this guy, the false prophet, is the Antichrist right-hand man, and they sort of make up a dynamic duo. And both are given power by the dragon, or Satan. So they can both do signs and wonders. The false prophet fits the description of the Pope. So our Pope right now is kind of pushing for a united religious system, a universal religious system. He's a universal religious leader. I mean, that's what the Catholic Church is universal in that sense, but he's also trying to combine. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Abrahamic house, the Abrahamic family house, which combines Catholicism or Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, all worshiping together. And this is something that the Pope has pushed for over the last couple of years. In fact, I think I'm going to try doing new things here tonight. So if I can share this screen, that'll be great. Can you guys see this? Or see what I've got going here? Let's try moving up here. Really start it. There we go.
Oh, got it.
So this is a multi-faith center, or a house of one, and where Christians, Jews, and Muslims will worship the same God. Or he's pushing for this. And this is in Abu Dhabi. So let's see. So next is the money system. So what I had talked about earlier was a cashless society possibly. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Stop sharing. There we go. Here's an article. I'll try to just read the negatives out of it. This is an article that came out in November. It's called "Beware of the Digital Dollar in CBDCs." I've mentioned CBDCs before, central bank digital currency. The United States is introducing the CBDC in, I believe, is June or July. So this came out of the Maine Wire, the state of Maine wire.com. And it states, so the New York Federal Reserve Bank has entered a partnership with major global banks to test the concept of a digital dollar, according to Reuters. I'll go down to the negatives that this guy lists just to save some time. The dangers that this is going to create. Let's see. To illustrate the dangers of the CBDCs, let me offer a few hypothetical examples of how a digital dollar controlled by a central government might work in practice. Now, keep in mind, this will be something that will be in place when the Antichrist comes on the scene. It will already be in place, and all he's going to have to do is flip the switch, and it will work to his benefit. So, the first thing this guy lists, the writer lists, is to protest governmental limits on personal freedom. Liberty activists stage a peaceful protest around the nation's capital. These are all hypothetical scenarios. The nation's leader, or that nation's leader, wanting to quell the protest and protect his power, instructs his Minister of Economic Control to reduce the protesters' CBDC balances by 50% every day until the protest ends. The protest ends shortly after the message pings on the CBDC smartphone app, so they'll be able to track where you're at, probably through a smartphone, but they will have total access to all your banking. The second thing, economic growth is lagging, and the economists in the federal government suspect it is because the consumer spending isn't strong enough, and people are saving their money rather than spending it. So to fix this problem, the Ministry of Economic Control announces a new year-long negative interest rate for all CBDC accounts. Upspent balances of CBDC will be reduced by 10% every month, and as a result, no one saves. Everyone spends, and the economists have saved the economy. So you won't be able to save money. You'll have to spend it. You're at the grocery store picking some ribeye steaks because some friends are coming over for a barbecue. When you get up to the counter, there's a problem. The cashier says the payment isn't going through. You check the CBDC app on your smartphone, and there's an alert. You have exceeded your monthly carbon credit usage. Please remove the following items from your grocery cart in order to proceed. They'll control what we're able to buy, to eat. Next item, you want to pick up a new firearm for hunting season. So you swing by the local sporting goods store. But when you go to transfer CBDC credits to the purchase, or for the purchase, you're denied. The trusty CBDC app explains, we've detected activity on your social media accounts that suggests you are at risk of causing harm to yourself or others. You are prohibited from purchasing a firearm for 1 year. I think they will keep you from buying any firearms, but this is all just hypothetical. Number 5, a mild coronavirus has arrived from Asia. Although it's only lethal to people who are old and obese, society and the government has gone hysterical and decided to implement lockdowns. The Ministry of Health, working in concert with their friends in the Ministry of Economic Control, issue a nationwide freeze on all unnecessary expenditures to stop the virus transmission. Of course, the accounts of politicians and certain government employees remain unfrozen so they can continue their important work keeping us safe. When the vax emerges, only those registered, I'm not sure if I can even say that anymore, um, are permit, let's see, emerges only those registered with the central government as vaccinated are permitted to use their CBDC balances. The unvaccinated find their CBDC balances are subjected to a 10% social credit tax because of their irresponsible behavior. So if you think these examples are the work of an overactive imagination, you haven't been paying attention. Each of these examples has been cribbed from the actual activities of governments and banks or the fantasies of left-wing think tanks that support CBDCs. And it goes on to list, some governments that have already implemented some of these things, as in Canada, Prime Minister Trudeau. So anyways, the point, and then it lists the competition with Bitcoin and whatnot. The point being is that whatever is going to happen by the midpoint of the tribulation, where they introduce this currency, you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade without the mark, whatever that's going to consist of, in your right hand or your forehead. So, as I mentioned on the video, or the study we did a few weeks ago, where it got pulled from YouTube because I mentioned certain things, which I won't mention, just to hopefully what I just said won't be cause to have it pulled. But you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade without this mark. I believe that this mark's also going to have all your other information, Vax card, your financials, all your records, social media. It'll be similar to what the Chinese are doing with the social credit score that they have there. And so they take money out of people's accounts. They give them a certain allotment, say they get 800 credits a month, and if you're going by their standards and doing the things, and you're not saying things on social media or speaking out, then you get to keep your money, or you get to spend it within a certain amount of time. If you don't spend your money, then you lose it. So, and you have to spend it on things that they want you to spend it on. So that's just, it's an idea of what's going to take place, or could take place. So I'll move on, and then he sets up an image. This is the image of the beast, that we will be able to speak and demand worship. So what is this image? What's the image of this beast going to be like? And we have an idea with artificial intelligence. I don't know if you guys last year saw this AI giant, or this thing called the Giant, that they were promoting. Let's see if I got a picture of him here. Share screen again. The Giant. So this is possibility of what the image. This is a 10-story statue that's able to speak. It takes on different personifications. So here it is John Lennon, for instance. They can Spider-Man, so they can pretty much put any kind of image. They actually have a video, which I probably won't play, but it promotes this giant, and so they're trying to do like a world tour in different cities with this giant, where it speaks, and it takes on different personalities, and people can actually have their picture taken, and they become the giant. So it's just another thing with that's going on that could possibly lead, to what this image of the beast might be. So anyway, so that brings us to tonight's study. and the second half of chapter 13, which is the beast rising from the land. So I'll read the verses and then or the passages here, and then we'll go back and dissect it. And so the beast from the earth, verse 11, chapter 13 says, "Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived." So the Antichrist was either murdered or he was wounded, and he somehow miraculously lived. Let me turn this off there. So he's granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, whatever that could be. It could be that statue. That the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So if you're not going to worship this beast, you will be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, it's a lot going on there. Let's go back to verse 11 and start dissecting this. So John's initial description of this second beast, he says, "Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon." So when he says, "I saw another beast," this creature represents someone like the beast rising from the sea. So he's similar to the Antichrist, because the same word beast is used to describe them both. At the same time, this beast is different. They are different in origin because one comes out of the sea and the other comes out of the earth. They are different in rank because the second is subordinate to the first, as in he causes the earth to worship the first beast. They are different in appearance because the second has a mild lamb-like appearance. Let me, rather than flip pages, I'm going to do my flip here. A little easier to read too. So he had two horns like a lamb, and so these two horns may express the fact that this beast has authority in two realms, such as religious, and political authority. Or he may have the two horns simply because that's how many horns lambs have, two horns like a lamb. He spoke like a dragon, and despite his lamb-like appearance, the message of this second beast is the same as the message of the first beast. And this second beast is called the false prophet. We read that in Revelation 16 and Revelation 19 and also Revelation 20. So he's called the false prophet. And as someone distinct from the first beast, which is the Antichrist, and he's also distinct from the dragon, which is Satan. And so with the dragon, the beast rising from the sea, and the beast rising from the land, we have an unholy trinity. We have the dragon, which is the anti-father, who is Satan, the beast rising from the sea, which is the Antichrist, and the beast rising from the land, which is the anti-Holy Spirit. verses 12 through 15. So this is the second beast's job description. And so he exercises all authority of the first beast in his presence and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth, or on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, and telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image of the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to this image, or this image of the beast, and that image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So he exercises all the authority of the first beast, and this beast rising up from the earth is essentially a satanic prophet. He leads the world to worship the beast and the dragon. So he causes the people to worship the Antichrist and Satan. Be a very satanic union here. It may seem fantastic to some that the world will be led into worship of a man and of the devil, but by nature, men have an undeniable religious impulse, and they also have an undeniable rebellion against God. And what men want most is not the elimination of religion, but their own religion. And they may say that they want the kingdom, but they don't want God in it. How true is that today? You know, people say they're believers, but they don't really want any part of God. They want him on their own terms. You know, when they need help or they need money, or they want a God who's like a genie in a bottle. So he performs great signs, and this beast rising from the sea has the signs and wonders to back up his false teaching. A specific miracle of the false prophet is described as he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth and in the sight of men. And it's important that John highlights this miracle because in the eyes of the deceived world, it answers the miracle of the two witnesses. And so the two witnesses who minister during this period and are persecuted by the Antichrist and his false prophet. To the deceived world, this also puts the false prophet in the class of Elijah. In 1 Kings 18, we can imagine this false prophet as saying, "Let the true God answer with fire," and then performing the deceptive wonder. And there is a supernatural power, a deceptive power, which is against God and truth, as well as one for God and truth. A miracle, simply as a work of wonder, is not necessarily of God. And there's always been a devilish supernaturalism in the world, running alongside the supernaturalism of divine grace and salvation. So in those days, or in the days of Exodus, Aaron performed miracles, and up to a point was matched miracle for miracle by the magicians of Egypt. Or if you remember, Moses and Aaron going before Pharaoh and the different plagues and whatnot. So Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 5, God assumes that there will be supernatural works on behalf of this false prophet, or of false prophets and idols. And he warns his people to judge a worker of miracles by their message and not only by their works. And we know that if there was a false prophet, that they were supposed to be put to death. Jesus says that some who work miracles, even in his name, were false followers and would perish in hell. Jesus said that in the end times, false prophets would emerge and show great signs and wonders to deceive even the elect, if it were possible. Paul has said that the Antichrist will come with all power, signs, and lying wonders. That's in 2 Thessalonians 2:9. So, knowing all this, the emphasis on signs and wonders among some Christians is frightening. And then some Christians say or think you can really know where God is and where his power is by signs and wonders. And you see this with the charismatic movement, that they really search for God's signs by whether it's speaking in tongues or there's always some kind of an emotional thing attached with it. So they're looking for signs and wonders, and thinking this way is to leave yourself wide open to deception, which is usually the case. So signs and wonders will be present among Christians, but the real marks of God's work, of course, is love, love and truth. So if you have love, you have nothing. Or if you don't have love, you don't have anything. So this, moving on, he's granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, and that the image of the beast should both speak and cause many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So think in terms of this giant thing again, this AI giant. The beast rising from the earth will use a deceptive animated image as a focus point of worship of the beast. And it may seem strange to us to have the whole world give this kind of worship to an image of a man, but the personality cults of totalitarian governments in the 20th century are good examples of this kind of worship. All we have to do is remember that totalitarian states like the Soviet Union or communist China and their omnipresent pictures of Stalin or Mao, and we see a pattern that will be ultimately fulfilled by the Antichrist. And so, moving on, the image of this beast is animated in some way, in that he has breath and he can speak. Think of AI again. And whether the image is animated supernaturally or technologically, the result will be impressive. The psalmist David mocked the idol worshippers because the idols of the heathen are silver and gold, and the work of men's hands, and they have mouths, but they speak not. They have eyes, but they don't see. They see not. The image of the Antichrist will be a different kind of idol, because this image of the beast should both speak and cause as many would not worship the image to be killed. So this idolatrous image is what Jesus and Daniel and Paul spoke of as the abomination of desolation, which I read in Daniel 9:27, and then Matthew 24:15, and also in 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. It is an idolatrous image set up in the holy place of the rebuilt temple. And so this will be in the rebuilt temple, the abomination of desolation. It is a desolation in the sense that it will bring the judgment described by the seals, the trumpets, and the bowl judgments. And this is the summation of the power of the Antichrist, whose authority ends after 42 months. And this marks the halfway point of the final 7 years of man's rule on this planet. The Antichrist power ends as soon as it peaks. So it's all downhill from here. And this is not a recent understanding of this passage. The first commentary that we have on the book of Revelation was written by Victorinus in the early church. And he says of Revelation 13:15, that he shall cause also that a golden image of the Antichrist shall be placed in the temple at Jerusalem. And that the apostate angel should enter, and thence utter voices and oracles. So this was a thought going back. This isn't anything that's new. This is a thought that goes back to the early church days. Excuse me. So moving on to verses 16 and 17, he has an economic strategy of the first beast and the second beast, or there is an economic strategy of both the beasts here. So he causes all, both great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive the mark on their right hand or on their forehead. So everybody, doesn't matter your status, your class, you're going to have to take this. They take the mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that no one may buy or sell except the one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And he causes all to receive a mark. Under the government of the beast and his associate, all will be given a mark. And without the mark, one will not be able to participate in the economy. No one will be able to buy, sell, except the one who has the mark of his name. And so, since the ancient Greek word for mark is charagma, isn't generally applied to people, the word isn't applied to people, but some have taken this as a symbolic mark. A literal mark, and let me start over here again. But a literal mark needed to buy or sell is certainly conceivable and practical. We saw through the pandemic not too long ago what we had to go through just to be able to get into a grocery store. So it's not inconceivable that something similar, if people were so quick to do certain things to be able to go to work or to enter a grocery store, it's very easy to see that they will, when presented with a situation where they won't be able to buy or sell, they will be presented with this mark. And so it'd be something similar. I think we saw a precursor of this just a few years ago. So the technology to give people a mark that enables them to buy and sell in an electronic economy is available. And there are many different ways it could happen, such as programs that are proposed and tested constantly. And so I also see this as, as I mentioned earlier with the CBDC coming, it's going to be a cashless society, and central bank will be controlling everything. They will tell us what our money will actually be worth and how we can spend it, and so on and so forth. A mark on their right hand or on their forehead. So Satan is not a creative being, and all he can do is imitate God. And so we're not surprised to find that this too is a satanic parody of something that God will do. It imitates God's mark upon his people. And you remember that we read in chapter 7 that the 144,000 Jewish evangelists will be sealed with the mark of God. So he's a imitator or a copycat. The number of his name. So this was a common concept in the ancient world. In Greek and in Hebrew, the letters were assigned a numerical value, such as A equaling 1, B equaling 2, and so forth. And for example, graffiti in the ruins of Pompeii reads, "I love her whose number is 545." So they use numbers, and so to write with and to create names. The number of the beast, and so it says, "Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." And so this number 666, does this tell us who the beast is by figuring out his numerical value of a name and seeing if it adds up to 666? Using this method, many candidates for the Antichrist have been suggested, such as the Pope, or the papacy, uh, John Knox, Martin Luther, Napoleon, Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and so forth. But the schemes for unlocking the number of the beast are as confusing as they are endless. I've seen charts, and maybe I could find one of how they will come to the name. So they have charts that list the letters in Greek and in Hebrew, and with the numbers. And so supposedly they will be able, or somebody will be able to figure out who this person is by the letters of his name adding up to 666 in the Greek or in the Hebrew. So I'll brush over the rest of that just because it gets more intricate. His number is 666, so Christians need not fear the number in a superstitious way. I know people, if you've ever gotten a license plate and your number on the license plate for your car was 666, I know people that have turned that back in really quick. So there's a superstitious thing that goes along with the number that, we kind of associate with evil, but we're not to be superstitious of it. It's interesting to see the way the world can attach or has an attachment to this number. And even with things like 666 brand cough syrup. The two beasts are satanic imitations. And we are represented with a false Christ and a false John the Baptist, in a sense. And they promote a false God. Satan can't create, but he can effectively deceive with imitation. And imitations have ever formed the gravest perils in the history of the church and the world. And the devil's final attempt to gain the government of the race will thus be an appalling attempt to imitate. And his imitations work precisely because they are similar. If they were so obviously different, it would be easy to tell the difference. And we must be aware and be familiar with the genuine. So, closing, instead of obsessing with fear and interest about the imitation, which is the Antichrist, how much more appropriate is it for Christians to be interested in the genuine, which is Jesus Christ? And Jesus Christ should be our focus. And as we know, as believers, we will be kept from this hour of tribulation that's going to be coming upon the whole world. We will be taken out of this world by Christ himself, the bridegroom. We are the bride. He is the bridegroom, and he is coming for his church to save us and take care of us. So that's the false prophet. And that's the two beasts in greater detail than we've read previously. So there you go. Anyone have any questions?